In 2014, tabloid headlines screamed that Macaulay Culkin was dead. Other reports claimed he was on the verge of death, wasting away from drug addiction. Photographs surfaced showing the former child star looking gaunt and disheveled. The media frenzy reached such heights that Entertainment Weekly published a detailed fact-check debunking the rumors. But the damage was done. The world had already written off the kid from Home Alone as another casualty of child stardom. To understand how far Macaulay Culkin fell, you need to understand how high he once stood. In 1990, Home Alone became a cultural phenomenon, grossing over $476 million worldwide. The 8-year-old Macaulay wasn't just a child actor, he became the most bankable star in Hollywood. According to The Hollywood Reporter, by 1994 he was earning $8 million per film. He was more valuable than most adult actors, a golden goose that everyone wanted a piece of. That piece was controlled entirely by one man, Kit Culkin, Macaulay's father. Kit was a former stage actor whose own career had never taken off. According to multiple reports from People magazine and Vanity Fair, Kit became his son's manager and wielded that power with an iron fist. He negotiated the contracts, controlled the money, and decided every aspect of his son's career. Former colleagues described Kit as difficult, demanding, and often combative on set. Between 1990 and 1994, Macaulay Culkin starred in 9 films, according to IMDb records. He worked on My Girl, Home Alone 2, The Good Son, Getting Even with Dad, The Pagemaster, and Richie Rich in rapid succession. For a child who should have been in school, playing with friends, and enjoying childhood, this was a punishing schedule. The New York Times later reported that Macaulay himself described this period as relentless, with little time for anything beyond work. Behind the scenes, the Culkin family was fracturing. Kit and Patricia Culkin's marriage deteriorated throughout the early 1990s. People magazine chronicled the growing tension between the parents as Macaulay's fame and fortune grew. In 1995, the couple separated. What followed wasn't just a divorce, it was a battle for control of Macaulay's estimated $17 million fortune. The custody fight wasn't primarily about the children's welfare, sources told the press. It was about the money. In 1997, at just 15 years old, Macaulay Culkin made a decision almost unheard of in Hollywood. He sued his parents for control of his own money. Court documents obtained by Entertainment Weekly show that Macaulay sought to remove both Kit and Patricia as legal guardians of his fortune. He didn't want either parent managing his finances. The lawsuit alleged that his parents were using his earnings for their own purposes, treating his wealth as their personal bank account. The case never went to trial. According to reports from CNN and the Associated Press, the Culkins reached a settlement in 1997. Kit and Patricia both agreed to step down from managing Macaulay's finances. A court-appointed accountant would oversee his fortune instead. The specifics of the settlement were sealed, but the message was clear: Macaulay had divorced his parents, at least financially. For Kit Culkin, who had built his entire identity around managing his son's career, it was a devastating blow. With the lawsuit behind him, Macaulay Culkin did something radical: he walked away. He stopped acting almost entirely. In a 2004 interview with Larry King, Culkin explained that he simply didn't enjoy it anymore. He had been working since he was 4 years old, and he was exhausted. Hollywood had taken his childhood, strained his family to the breaking point, and turned him into a commodity. He wanted out, and he had enough money to make that choice. During this period, one of Macaulay's most publicized relationships was with Michael Jackson. The two had met in the early 1990s and formed a close friendship. Jackson, himself a former child star, seemed to understand what Culkin was going through. According to Culkin's own testimony, reported extensively by CBS News and ABC, they connected over their shared experience of lost childhoods and the pressures of fame. But this friendship would later thrust Culkin into a different kind of spotlight. In 2005, Macaulay Culkin was called to testify at Michael Jackson's criminal trial. Jackson faced multiple charges of child molestation, and prosecutors suggested that Culkin might have been a victim.
According to court transcripts published by CNN, Culkin took the stand and firmly denied any inappropriate behavior.
He testified that Jackson had never molested him or acted improperly. His testimony was considered crucial to Jackson's eventual acquittal. But the trial forced Culkin back into the media glare he had worked so hard to escape. While Culkin tried to live a private life in New York City, the tabloids refused to let him go. Page 6, TMZ, and the Daily Mail tracked his every movement. In 1998, at 17, he married actress Rachel Miner, according to People magazine. The marriage lasted 2 years before they separated, divorcing in 2002. He dated actress Mila Kunis for 8 years, from 2002 to 2010, according to Us Weekly. But even these relationships became tabloid fodder, dissected and analyzed by a media that remembered him only as the Home Alone kid. In 2004, Macaulay Culkin's attempts at privacy suffered a major blow. He was arrested in Oklahoma City for possession of marijuana and controlled substances, according to police records reported by the Associated Press. Officers found marijuana, Xanax, and sleeping pills in his possession. Culkin later pleaded guilty to misdemeanor charges and paid a fine. While the drugs were relatively minor, the arrest fed into a growing narrative that Culkin was spiraling. The tabloid seized on the story as proof that another child star was self-destructing. From 2004 onward, the media constructed a narrative of Macaulay Culkin as a cautionary tale. Every paparazzi photo that showed him looking thin or disheveled was analyzed as evidence of drug addiction. The National Enquirer and Star magazine published repeated stories claiming he was addicted to heroin, despite offering no concrete evidence. According to a 2012 investigation by Gawker, many of these stories relied on anonymous sources or pure speculation. But facts didn't matter. The story was too good to fact-check. By 2014, the rumors reached their absurd climax with reports of Culkin's death. According to fact checks by Snopes and Entertainment Weekly, the death hoax began on social media and was quickly amplified by clickbait websites. Photographs from years earlier were recirculated as recent evidence of his decline. One widely shared image showed Culkin looking extremely thin, which the websites claimed proved he was near death from heroin addiction. None of it was true, but millions of people believed it. Culkin himself responded with characteristic humor. In an interview with The Guardian in 2016, he addressed the death rumors directly, saying, quote, "I'm here, I'm alive, and I'm doing just fine." He explained that he had always been naturally thin and that the paparazzi photos were taken on bad days and from unflattering angles. He dismissed the heroin addiction rumors as complete fabrication. But he also acknowledged the psychological toll of having the world constantly declare you're dying or dead while you're simply trying to live your life. While the tabloids wrote him off, Culkin had been quietly pursuing creative projects on his own terms. He formed a comedy rock band called the Pizza Underground, which performed pizza-themed parodies of Velvet Underground songs, according to Rolling Stone. He appeared in small indie films and web series that interested him. He made art, wrote, and collaborated with friends. These projects weren't blockbusters, and they weren't meant to be. They were about creative expression, not fame or money. He was finally working for himself, not for his father or Hollywood. In 2017, Culkin launched Bunny Ears, a lifestyle and comedy website. According to an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, the site allowed him to satirize celebrity culture from the inside. He published absurdist humor pieces, podcasts, and commentary that mocked the very tabloid culture that had tormented him for years. Bunny Ears became a platform where Culkin controlled the narrative for once. He wasn't the subject of gossip, he was the one making fun of it. It was a form of reclaiming power. One question that followed Culkin for decades was whether he ever reconciled with his father. In multiple interviews, including a 2018 appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, Culkin confirmed that he and Kit remained estranged. He stated that he had no relationship with his father and no desire to repair it. The wounds from his childhood, the financial control, and the lawsuit were too deep. Kit Culkin, for his part, has largely stayed out of the public eye since losing control of his son's career. In 2017, Culkin began dating actress Brenda Song, known for her work on Disney Channel and in films.
According to People magazine, the relationship marked a turning point for Culkin.
Friends described Song as a stabilizing presence who understood the pressures of child stardom, having experienced them herself. The couple kept their relationship largely private, avoiding the tabloid circus that had plagued Culkin's previous romances. For the first time in years, reports suggested, Culkin seemed genuinely happy and grounded. In April 2021, People magazine reported that Culkin and Song welcomed their first child, a son they named Dakota, after Culkin's late sister who died in 2008.
The announcement was low-key, fitting Culkin's desire for privacy.
In a 2020 interview with Esquire, Culkin had spoken about wanting to be a father and how he wanted to do it differently than his own father had. He wanted to give his children the childhood he never had, one without cameras, without pressure, and without being treated as a commodity.
In 2021, Culkin also made a notable return to television with a guest role on American Horror Story.
According to Variety, it was one of his first major acting roles in years, and he approached it on his own terms. He chose the project because it interested him, not because he needed the money or validation. Entertainment Weekly noted that his performance was well received, proving he still had talent when he chose to use it.
But he made clear this wasn't a full Hollywood comeback. He was simply doing what he enjoyed, when he enjoyed it.
In December 2023, Macaulay Culkin received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. According to the Associated Press, the ceremony was attended by his partner Brenda Song, their children, and close friends including actress Natasha Lyonne and director Catherine Hardwicke. In his acceptance speech, Culkin reflected on his journey, thanking those who stood by him during his darkest years. It was a public acknowledgement of his career, but more importantly, it was on his terms. He hadn't chased Hollywood's approval, he'd simply outlasted the chaos.
The child star curse is well documented.
According to research published in Psychology Today and documented by numerous entertainment outlets, child actors face disproportionately high rates of substance abuse, mental health issues, and financial ruin. The list of casualties is long: Dana Plato, Corey Haim, Brad Renfro, and many others. These young performers were exploited by parents, managers, and studios, then discarded when they aged out of their roles. The system is designed to extract value from children, and it rarely protects them when the fame fades.
What allowed Macaulay Culkin to survive when so many others didn't? Financial independence was crucial.
By taking legal control of his money at 15, he ensured he wouldn't be left broke like many child stars. His willingness to walk away from Hollywood removed the pressure to maintain fame at any cost. And perhaps most importantly, he had the self-awareness to recognize what the industry had taken from him and the courage to refuse to give more. These factors, combined with supportive relationships later in life, created a foundation for survival. In a 2020 interview with Esquire, Culkin reflected on what fame cost him.
He described missing out on normal childhood experiences, the loss of privacy, and the breakdown of his family. He acknowledged that while Home Alone brought him wealth and opportunity, it also brought exploitation and trauma. He stated that he wouldn't wish his childhood on anyone, despite the material success it brought. It's a sobering admission from someone who, to the outside world, seemed to have everything a child could want. The media's treatment of Culkin cannot be ignored in this story. According to analysis by media watchdog organizations and journalism reviews, tabloids and entertainment outlets actively profited from narratives of his decline, whether true or not. Death hoaxes, drug rumors, and unflattering paparazzi photos were published not because they were newsworthy, but because they generated clicks and sold magazines. The Columbia Journalism Review has noted that this predatory coverage of troubled celebrities, especially former child stars, represents one of tabloid journalism's most ethically questionable practices. Culkin's story is not unique, it's symptomatic of systemic failures in how the entertainment industry treats child performers.
California's Coogan Law, named after child actor Jackie Coogan, requires that a portion of a child actor's earnings be set aside in a trust. But according to legal experts quoted in Variety, the law has loopholes and is often poorly enforced. Many child actors still reach adulthood to find their parents have spent their earnings. The protections exist on paper but fail in practice, leaving children vulnerable to exploitation. Beyond financial protections, there are few safeguards for the psychological well-being of child actors. According to child welfare advocates interviewed by The Atlantic, there are no mandatory therapy requirements, no limits on working hours comparable to other child labor laws, and no systematic monitoring of children's welfare on sets.
Studios and parents are trusted to act in the child's best interest, but as countless cases have shown, financial incentives often override those interests. The system is built on trust, and that trust is frequently betrayed. Culkin is not the only child star to survive and rebuild. Drew Barrymore overcame addiction and family trauma to build a successful adult career.
Jodie Foster transitioned from child roles to become an acclaimed director and producer. Elijah Wood has spoken about being protected by his mother from the predatory aspects of Hollywood. According to interviews these actors have given to outlets like Vanity Fair and The Hollywood Reporter, they share common factors: supportive adults who prioritized their well-being, financial security, and the ability to take breaks from the industry.
For every survivor, there are those who didn't make it.
According to investigations by Rolling Stone and Entertainment Weekly, many former child stars have died from overdoses, suicide, or addiction-related causes. Others live in poverty, unable to transition to adult careers and having been left financially destitute by mismanaged earnings.
Some struggle with mental health issues stemming from childhood trauma and exploitation.
These outcomes are not random failures, they are predictable results of a system that values profit over the welfare of children.
There have been efforts to reform the system.
According to reports from Variety and The Hollywood Reporter, advocacy groups like the Screen Actors Guild have pushed for stronger protections for child performers, including mandatory psychological support and stricter oversight of finances. Some states have strengthened their versions of the Coogan Law. But progress has been slow, and the fundamental power dynamics, where children generate enormous profits for adults, remain unchanged.
Until that changes, child actors will remain vulnerable to the same exploitation Culkin experienced. Culkin himself has not become a vocal advocate for child actor protections in the way some survivors have. In interviews, including his 2018 appearance on Marc Maron's WTF podcast, he's expressed reluctance to position himself as a spokesperson for child star issues. He prefers to tell his own story and let others draw their own conclusions. However, by simply being transparent about his experiences with parental exploitation, financial control, and media harassment, he's contributed to a broader conversation about how the industry treats children. His survival itself is a form of testimony.
Today, according to recent interviews and public appearances, Macaulay Culkin appears to be in a genuinely good place.
He lives in Los Angeles with Brenda Song and their children.
He acts occasionally, when projects interest him. He runs his creative ventures and collaborates with friends on projects that bring him joy rather than money or fame. In a 2023 interview with the New York Times, he described his life as, quote, normal and boring in the best possible way.
For someone who spent his childhood in chaos, normal and boring is a hard-won victory. One aspect of Culkin's life that continues to generate interest is his relationship with Michael Jackson, who died in 2009. Culkin is the godfather to Jackson's children, according to People magazine. He has consistently defended Jackson's legacy in interviews, including a 2020 appearance on Inside of You podcast, where he reiterated that Jackson never behaved inappropriately with him. However, he's also acknowledged the complexity of Jackson's public image and the serious allegations others have made. He speaks from his own experience while respecting that others may have had different experiences. Public perception of Culkin has shifted dramatically in recent years. According to social media analysis and cultural commentary from outlets like Vulture and The Ringer, younger audiences who grew up watching Home Alone now view Culkin as a survivor rather than a cautionary tale. His dry humor, creative projects, and refusal to play by Hollywood's rules have earned him a kind of cult respect.
The narrative has changed from the tragic fallen child star to someone who outsmarted the system and built a life on his own terms. It's a rare redemption arc that he achieved not by conforming, but by refusing to. In December 2022, People magazine reported that Culkin and Song welcomed their second child, though they've kept details private in keeping with their approach to family life. This growing family represents perhaps the clearest evidence of Culkin's successful rebuilding of his life. He's creating the stable, private family environment that he never had as a child. According to friends quoted in various interviews, fatherhood has given him a sense of purpose and peace that fame never did. He's breaking the cycle of dysfunction that defined his own childhood.
What's notable about Culkin's current creative work is its complete freedom from commercial pressure.
His podcast appearances, his Bunny Ears projects, and his occasional acting roles are chosen purely based on interest and friendship. According to interviews with Entertainment Weekly and other outlets, he's turned down numerous offers for Home Alone reboots, sequels, and nostalgia-driven projects that would have paid substantial sums. He's not interested in monetizing his past. This creative autonomy, to work only when and how he wants, is the ultimate privilege his early earnings bought him.
Culkin's story offers clear lessons for Hollywood, though it remains to be seen whether the industry will learn them.
According to child welfare experts and industry observers quoted in publications like The Atlantic and Variety, the key takeaways include the need for independent financial oversight, mandatory psychological support for child performers, enforcement of working hour limits, and criminal penalties for parents who exploit their children's earnings. But implementing these protections requires an industry to value children's welfare over profit, something it has historically been unwilling to do. The conversation about child actors and exploitation has gained momentum in recent years, partly due to stories like Culkin's. Documentaries such as Showbiz Kids and memoirs by former child actors have brought attention to systemic problems. According to The Hollywood Reporter, there's growing pressure from advocacy groups, unions, and even some industry insiders to reform how children are treated in entertainment. Social media has also given former child stars a platform to share their experiences directly.
The question is whether this conversation will translate into meaningful structural change or remain just talk. One of the most important factors in Culkin's survival was his financial independence.
By securing control of his earnings at 15, he ensured he wouldn't face the poverty that has destroyed many former child stars. According to financial advisors who work with entertainers, interviewed by Forbes and Money magazine, this independence gave him the freedom to refuse work, take breaks, and avoid desperate career choices driven by financial need. It allowed him to prioritize his mental health and personal life over maintaining fame. Money, in this case, literally bought freedom from the industry that had exploited him. In 2008, Macaulay's sister Dakota died in a car accident at age 29, according to reports from CNN and People magazine. Her death deeply affected Culkin, who had remained close to his siblings despite his estrangement from his parents. He rarely speaks about her publicly, but naming his son Dakota in her honor speaks to the lasting impact of her loss. According to those close to the family, Dakota's death was a reminder of how fragile life is and may have contributed to Culkin's desire to build a stable, protected family life of his own.
Perhaps Culkin's most radical act has been his consistent choice of privacy over publicity. In an era where celebrities monetize every aspect of their lives on social media, Culkin maintains minimal online presence and rarely gives interviews. When he does speak to press, according to interviews with GQ and other publications, it's on his terms and timeline. He doesn't attend most Hollywood events, doesn't engage with tabloid narratives, and has structured his life to be as private as possible given his fame. This privacy has been essential to his mental health and recovery. While Culkin lost the support of his parents, he found it elsewhere. According to various interviews, he maintained close relationships with his siblings, particularly Kieran Culkin, who is also an actor. He's cultivated friendships with people like Seth Green, who co-starred with him as a child in movies like Party Monster, and director Jordan Rubin. These relationships, built on genuine connection rather than industry networking, provided the emotional foundation he needed. Having people who knew him as a person, not as the Home Alone kid, was crucial to maintaining his sense of self.
Looking back at the arc of Macaulay Culkin's life, from child superstar to tabloid punching bag to private family man, a pattern emerges. According to psychological research on child trauma and recovery, cited by therapists who work with former child actors in interviews with Psychology Today, Culkin's trajectory shows the importance of agency, boundaries, and the ability to opt out of toxic systems. He survived not by fighting to stay in Hollywood, but by recognizing when to leave. His story is less about redemption and more about escape and the hard work of building a healthy life from scratch. In 2023, when Macaulay Culkin received his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, it could have been seen as Hollywood reclaiming him. But those who have followed his journey know the truth is the opposite. Culkin stood on Hollywood Boulevard not as a prodigal son returning to the industry that made him, but as someone who survived despite it. He didn't need Hollywood's validation, Hollywood needed to acknowledge him. The star wasn't a reconciliation. It was a marker of endurance. He made it through, and he did it his way. The dark truth about the Home Alone kid is not that he fell into drugs or died young, as the tabloids wanted you to believe. The dark truth is what was done to him, a father who saw him as a cash machine, an industry that worked him relentlessly as a child, a legal system that inadequately protected his earnings, and a media that later profited from narratives of his destruction. The darker truth is that this system continues to operate, and Culkin's survival is the exception, not the rule. His story is not a happy Hollywood ending. It's a warning.